everybody, Ty here. Hope everyone is doing well. As you can see behind me now, the sun is shining brightly into my room, which tells you that this severe weather front, which actually passed through my area, is starting to wither away at this point. There's still a little bit of action going on over here towards Ohio, where we have severe thunderstorm warnings next to that centralized area of low pressure. But as a whole here, today was a little bit slower than yesterday, but nonetheless, we did have a few notable storms. There were some tornadoes overnight, of course, over towards Alabama, which brings the grand total for the event over the last couple of days up to about 40. In total severe reports, we're getting close to 250 just from yesterday alone. Add in the extra ones today, we're probably going to be a little bit over, I'd say maybe even 300 before all is said and done. We're already sitting at 68 wind reports for today alone. Thankfully, though, this is going to be the last significant severe event for 2024, so we're not going to be worried so much about thunderstorms in the days that follow. It's really just today that we're dealing with at this point. You can see in the overview here, this is the main area of concern that we would still have for severe weather, but as you can see, things are downtrending with this pretty quickly, so not really going to get into severe weather too much from this point onward here. We're really just going to watch this low kind of head out of here, and then next couple of days are going to be rather tame. Really, the essence of this video is going to be mainly based around the big change we're going to have to start next year. 2025 is going to start out as a really cold couple weeks. In fact, record low temperatures, I would honestly say at this point, are expected. I have very good confidence in this. I haven't really had too much time to talk about it because of that significant severe threat that we had yesterday. Only a handful of times where you would see a moderate risk issued in general, especially not this late into the year. But in any case, though, as we get into the 6 to 10 day outlook here, notice how cold it is out towards the eastern half of the U.S., especially over towards the mid-Atlantic and parts of the deep south here towards the Alps. The Appalachian Mountains here, we have a 50 to 60% chance of below average temperatures within this time frame here. So heck of a start to the new year, and with that could come an array of different conditions to go along with this. And the thing is, if we were to go to the 8 to 14 day outlook, confidence only increases as we go further along here. We actually get into the 60 to 70 percentile range for that. So again, I would expect some significantly below average temperatures for this region, really all of these regions here in the blue. What your average temperatures look like determine what your percentile is going to be. However, with the mass exodus of cold air that we're going to be expecting here, and I'm going to get into the details and just how significant those values will be, will determine what your, like I said, it will determine your percentile, but these are going to still be very cold even for these regions. Like I would expect some below zero temperatures over here. So if we're getting it here, best believe up towards North, South Dakota and beyond, we're going to get some of that as well. Out towards the west, we're going to be above average for a large portion of this region. We're just going to be moving into place here, and that's going to help keep those warmer temperatures around for that region. Over towards the eastern half of the U.S. is really going to be where the main focus of that cold air is going to be. But if we were to go ahead and get into the model data here, you'll kind of get an idea of what's going on here. Of course, as you know, we like to do model comparisons, so we'll have the GFS and the Euro models. These are operational models, of course. We don't really use the ensembles too much because they can sometimes be a bit wonky and unreliable in regards to consistency with the forecast. So we usually just wait until we get the operational runs like we have here. So Euro's in the bottom left, GFS is in the main part of the screen. And the thing that you'll notice is they aren't looking too dissimilar at all. The cool thing is, at least for the new year, we're going to be rather zonal. I mean, there's going to be chances of showers and storms, but wouldn't expect anything major here. Now, one thing that is a little bit different here is the GFS seems to be a little bit more on an aggressive trend here in regards to shower and particularly wintry activity, especially to close out the year. But even so, it's going to be only to a very minute extent in regards to the difference between the two. Now, as we go further along, this is where things get a little bit more critical. But still, we still have about average temperatures, I would say, over towards the eastern half of the U.S. here. But watch what we start to see occur as we get towards the third and into the fourth here. that troughing begins to kick in, and then here's a secondary trough to back this one, and then after that it's open season. We really start to see a massive cool down over the lower 48 here, and you can see it on both models. Euro is a little bit slower with the progression here, but as we continue to move forward here, you can just see how that cold air is not only just pouring into the eastern half of the US, it's kind of lingering. It seems like throughout the first half of January, it's going to be significantly colder across the southeast. Now, as we mentioned before, out towards the west, we do get a little bit of cold air to start out the new year. Here's some troughing here. But as we go further along, look at the ridge that ends up starting to take over towards this region. I would expect potentially even record above average temperatures as an inverse to what we see out towards the eastern half of the US. Classic case, but potentially maybe even a slightly extreme case of a positive PNA where it's warmer out towards the west and cooled out to the east here. The significance is always a question whenever we get into those kinds of patterns. But in either case here, you can see that cold air, even as we get into the 14th, which is the very end of this model run here, you can see that it's still pretty cool out towards the east, and towards the west we still have plenty of ridging to go around here. Eventually, of course, this will move east, so I do think as we get towards the back half of January, we're going to probably see a notable pattern shift, and who knows what may come with that. We'll probably be doing a long range video right around the beginning of the month too to go along with it, so busy times ahead. But in any case, let's go ahead and keep this train rolling here. We're going to actually go ahead and go over to temperatures now, and this is what's going to be a real eye-opener for a lot of us here. So again, have the euro here on the bottom left corner of the screen. What you'll notice is, again, towards the new year, towards New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, not really a whole lot going on. Just a few record lows here, just a few cold temperatures here and there. Wouldn't even expect record lows with this. Again, it's really towards the 4th where things become pretty noticeable. Here are those below zero temperatures over here starting to sneak their way into the Dakotas first. Wind chill advisories are probably going to be coming into play. Now as we go further along, watch what happens here. This frontal boundary passes, and then right behind that, here it comes. Unabated, brutal cold here, starting to shift its way into the central US, where we have negative teens for temperatures, and this is early in the morning. And even those negative temperatures look like they're hanging around over towards the Dakotas for highs even at this point. As we go further along, you can see these colder temperatures even starting to push their way into the deep south. We even may have days potentially, if this does indeed verify, if this trough pushes as far south as it's anticipated to do so, we could be seeing high temperatures in the 20s for my area. I live in Atlanta. So that's saying a lot, and it's a great testament to just how cold this air is that we very well might be getting at this point. Like I said, it's been pretty consistent amongst the models that we have something like this, but again, we're still at very long range at this point, so I'm taking this with a grain of salt. Look at the morning lows here across the deep south, getting into the teens here towards my area. We have parts of northern Alabama getting into the single digits, and negative temperatures reaching maybe even as far south as southern parts of Missouri, maybe even sneaking into parts of Arkansas before all is said and done. So like I said, it looks really frigid over here towards the eastern half of the US as we get towards the back part of the first half of the month. Back half, we may start to see some improvements here. We'll have to wait and see how things develop with that. As we were looking at that here, the euro was looking relatively consistent and very congruent to the GFS here, so pretty concerning looks there. Definitely would be concerned about not only wind chills, but also maybe some I would also expect maybe a few freeze warnings here and there as well. Now, to show just how significant of a departure this would be above average here, we're going to have both the GFS and Euro again on here, but we're going to be looking at the temperature anomaly. Now, obviously, we're pretty much right above average, maybe closer to average as we get towards New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, especially once this little frontal boundary passes. But watch this. This is when the show really begins to start. It's right around the 4th. it kind of comes in droves a little bit. The first push isn't that significant. It's really the second push after that. And then here it comes. 20, 30 degrees below average. Starts out, of course, over towards parts of the Dakotas. Then watch this. 40 degrees below average here towards Nebraska. Then as we go further along, we may even see some upper fort. We'll see maybe even close to like 45 degrees below average here. Continue to move further along. I'm pretty sure there might even be a 50-degree below average here somewhere. But those sharp white colors, even that tiny little tint of sky blue in there, it's just, that's that really cold air beginning to take over at this point. Over towards the deep south, we just kind of hold consistently towards those 20 to maybe even 25 degrees below average at times. There could even be a few 30 sprinkled in there. Again, this isn't verified, this isn't guaranteed to happen, but this is I would go as far as to say that this is a notable signal that I'm looking at this point. But in any case though, one thing that hasn't changed here is the fact that we have two very consistent models showing. They've been trending this for a little while here, if I'm being honest, so definitely interested in seeing just what comes of that. Now, in the meanwhile, while all of this is going on out towards the west, we're going to actually be a bit above average, but depending on where that is, you may end up seeing some record temperatures. In particular, I think the greatest area with the area of the greatest potential for above average temperatures is going to be more so over towards, I would say, maybe western Colorado, over towards maybe the mountainous terrain, I would say. But even then, beyond that point, it's not all that significant here. Like I said, at the most, from what I've seen on here so far, we're about maybe 10, at most maybe 15 degrees above average. Maybe towards the mountainous terrain, it could be a little bit more. But if we were to look at the numbers overall, it's not as crazy as I thought it would be, but those probabilities definitely can be misleading at times. Now, last thing we're going to look at here, we're going to go ahead and look at our precipitation map, and this is where things also get really interesting. Now, there's going to be a feature that pops up when we get towards that 200-hour time frame that really is going to kind of capture a lot of people's attention if you're watching very closely. So this is the first storm system that comes through. This already looks like it has the potential to bring a little bit of southern wind-free precipitation, mainly towards the mountains here. Could even be some notable ice with this as well, based off of the potential for cold air damming. Now, watch what happens as this moves further along. Could even be a slight chance of severe weather. I'm not really willing to back that in just yet, mainly because of the fact that it's still going to be pretty chilly over here towards the deep south, so I'm not really concerned with that. Up north, however, this is where things kind of get interesting. I do think that there's a notable chance of some considerable precipitation, wintry precipitation at this point. Maybe Chicago could be getting into the mix here. And then also I do think lake effect snow is going to come into play behind this as well to go with it. So as a result, we could be pretty busy in regards to covering winter weather. And then this feature right here, 219 hours out, as we mentioned before, look at this. Now, the Euro's not showing this. The GFS, however, is. There's an interesting little low pressure that pops up here, and with this cold air already in place, moisture's not going to have anywhere to really go except interact with this cold air, and that could be a southern snow event if this verifies. That is the key word here, is if this verifies. This is a very bold run at a medium range here. I've seen these change a billion times, so I am not going to lock this in and say, oh yeah, be on the lookout for snow on January 6th, January 7th. So definitely need to keep an eye on this, but this is not the time to go out and clean the shelves at all your stores, because in all honesty, by the next model run, this may not even be here. Keep in mind, again, only the GFS is showing this. The Euro and the GFS were showing this along with a couple other models. Then I'd say, okay, definitely think that there is a higher chance of this happening. I still wouldn't lock it in until well, really the day of, maybe a couple days before at the most. But in either case, though, a lot of cold air coming in. And then, interestingly enough, GFS has another situation where even the where even like southern Georgia and the Alabama, and not the Bama coast, but the Carolina coast could even have some notable snow with this as well. Quick moving systems here, maybe even a couple clippers to go along with this. But in either case, though, that cold air is in place, and if a system crosses anywhere in the deep south, there's a chance for snow. Really, it's going to be really what I'm most interested in out of all of these, and I'm going to go back in time a bit, is there, I do see some potential for maybe a nor'easter. It really depends heavily on the track of this low. Euro's kind of pushing it a little bit further out here too, so it's a little bit questionable at this time. So really interested in seeing just how things pan out with this cold air. If there's anything that I'm confident in at this point, is the fact that we are going to get a big Arctic blast. The questions I have are how long, and will there be any storm systems that come along as this occurs here. So a lot of questions left to be answered with this, but might want to be preparing for a big change in the weather over here if you're towards the eastern half of the U.S. And just how long that lasts is still questionable at this point. Hope you guys have enjoyed the holidays so far. We still got a little bit more to go. Make sure you're responsible on New Year's Eve, and I will see you pretty soon, I'd say. Until then, take care and have an awesome rest of your day.